welcome to the basic training kitchen. This particular video is meant for people who have opted for the vegetarian option in the first year. The menu for today is we are making a cream of celery. Along with that, the main course is going to be a veg pot pie. The accompaniments, we are making a bubble and squeak, and the vegetable accompaniment is ratatouille. The accompaniments are the same for the menu as were the case with the non-veg option. We are just making the veg soup and the veg main course. For the veg soup, we have celery. What we are going to do is we will discard the leaves of the celery and chop up the celery into fine pieces. We'll melt butter plus oil in a pan, add in some onion and garlic, saute the onion and garlic, then we'll be adding our celery. Along with the celery, we'll be adding a little bit of potato. Potato will give additional thickening to the soup. Cook the celery and the potatoes until they are done by adding a little bit of water to it. You may also add vegetable stock at this particular stage instead of water. Once the potato and the celery is completely cooked, we'll add additional flavoring in the form of some dill. The dill is a flavor which goes very well with celery and potatoes. Once the potatoes and celery is cooked, we will strain the mixture out. We'll cool it down and we'll grind it to a puree. This puree will be added back to the liquid that was left over, and we'll adjust the consistency of the soup either using milk or water. This soup will be reheated and garnished with little bit of fresh cream. Moving on to the main course, which is your veg pot pie. You can use any kind of vegetables in this particular preparation. We are using onion, carrot, potato, turnips, cauliflower and green peas, along with tomatoes, which will provide the moistness to the dish. To begin off, we'll heat up some oil and butter in a pan, add in finely chopped onions, finely chopped garlic. Once they have been sauteed, then we'll add in dices of potato, carrot, cauliflower, turnip, and along with that, we'll add refined flour. We'll cook the refined flour. When the refined flour is cooked, we'll add in approximately 100 ml of water, and we'll allow the mixture to simmer until the vegetables are almost cooked. Once the vegetables are almost cooked, we'll be adding our tomato puree and green peas. Cook the mixture thoroughly, then we'll transfer the mixture into a ramekin mold. Allow the mixture to cool down slightly, and we'll top up the ramekin mold with a short crust pastry. The short crust pastry has been shown to you how it is done. It is basically a combination of refined flour and margarine or butter. We are using butter in this case, 1:2 ratio, 1 part of fat plus 2 parts of flour. We will be topping this up, topping the vegetable mixture with the short crust pastry. We will be giving a few gashes on the surface so that there is place for the steam to escape out. We will brush the top of the short crust pastry with some milk, and we will put it in the oven for baking. We will put it in the oven at 180 degrees Celsius for anywhere between 12 to 15 minutes. Once the dish is cooked, that is the short crust pastry is cooked, we will serve the dish as it is. That is, we are not going to demold the dish, we will serve the dish as it is.
Divide the ingredients as per the menu now. For the celery soup, we require the celery. The onion will be divided into half. Half of it will go for the veg pot pie, and the remaining half will go for the soup. Garlic again goes in 2 dishes, your soup as well as your veg pot pie. Moving on to potato. Some amount of potato goes in the soup because it acts as the thickening agent in the soup. Along with dill will give the flavoring to the soup. The remaining potato along with the rest of the vegetables will go for the veg pot pie. The turnip over here is way too much for 2 portions of food that we are cooking. So we are using only half of the turnip, the green peas and the parsley. So these ingredients are used for the veg pot pie. Moving on for the soup. First we'll peel the potato. As you can notice, I have kept a vessel containing water alongside so that as soon as the potato is peeled and chopped, it can go in the cold water. This is done so that the potato does not oxidize and turn black in color. The potato will be roughly chopped up because after cooking we are going to puree it. It actually does not matter how well you chop it up. It goes in the cold water. Moving on to the celery now. As I said initially, we do not use the leaves of the celery. So the celery leaves are going to be discarded now. All the celery leaves will be discarded. Only the stalks of the celery are going to be used. The bottom part of the celery stalk, which is near to the ground, which may contain some amount of soil, mud, dirt, has to be discarded as well. I am separating each and every stalk now so that it's easier to pluck the leaves out. We need to remove each and every one of the leaf because leaves of the celery are usually not consumed. The stalks now will be washed. After washing, we will roughly chop up the stalks again. Again, as was the case with potatoes, we are going to puree the soup later on, so it does not actually matter how well you chop the celery. So just roughly chop up the celery. Make sure that it is properly cleaned, properly washed first. Because this is a celery soup, you can notice that the amount of celery that we are using is considerably more as compared to the other vegetables that go into the soup. The dill and the onion both also have to be processed. Transfer the celery onto a clean plate. The onion will be peeled and then roughly chopped up. Dill also has to be chopped up roughly. Roughly chop up the onion and then the dill leaves. The dill leaves are also going to be pureed, so it does not matter how well you chop it up. So roughly chop it up, but the quantity of dill leaves has to be taken properly because dill is a very strong herb. It can overpower any flavor. So keeping that in mind, we have taken less amount of dill. In a pan, we are heating up some oil along with some butter. We usually use butter in combination with oil because butter has a low smoking point and it burns very quickly. To prevent that from happening, we are using a combination of butter and oil over here. Then we'll be adding a chopped garlic and chopped onions. We are first going to sweat the onion and garlic in the butter oil mixture. We are not going to brown this mixture at all. Once they have sweated, then we'll add in the potatoes. Remove the potatoes from the water and then transfer them into the pot. The potatoes are also going to be sauteed. Saute them well, and then we'll be adding in our celery. The celery also has to be sauteed properly. We are going to cook this mixture in water. If water is not, if you have white stock, if you are making this in a non-veg option, you will be using white stock instead of water. So I am adding some refined flour over here to provide additional thickness to the soup. Potatoes will provide thickness to the soup, but to enhance the thickness of the soup, we are also adding a little bit of refined flour to it. We are going to cook the refined flour. Once the refined flour is completely cooked, only then can we add the liquid component to the mixture. Over here we are using plain water, as I said, but if you are making this in a non-veg option, we could add some white stock to it. You can also add a combination of water and milk over here. Along with the water, you can also add the flavoring ingredients in the form of bay leaf and peppercorns. Allow the mixture to come to a boil and then reduce the flame and allow the vegetables to cook properly. Once the potatoes are fully done, only then can we add the dill leaves to our mixture. As you notice over here, I am adding the bay leaf and the peppercorns right now. Moving on to the main course now. We have already prepped the vegetables. The cauliflower has been cut into florets, the potato has been cut into dices, tomato has been blanched and diced, chopped onion, chopped ginger, carrot has been diced, turnip has been diced, some bay leaf, peppercorn, butter and refined. To start off, we'll heat some oil plus some butter in a pan. Once the mixture of oil and butter has heated up, then we'll be adding in the onion and garlic. We are going to saute the onion and garlic. We are not going to brown them in the oil, we are just going to sweat them out. Once they have sweated out, then we'll be adding in the hard vegetables first in the form of carrot and turnip. It is absolutely essential that the vegetables are chopped in the right size and right shape. so that they cook evenly. Along with the carrot and turnips, we have also added the potatoes, and now we are adding the cauliflower florets. We are going to stir fry these vegetables. Then we are going to add the thickening in the form of refined flour. It's absolutely essential that the flour gets cooked properly, otherwise the dish will get a gummy taste at the end. Once the flour is cooked, then we'll be adding in some water just enough to cover the vegetables. If you are making this in the non-veg option, you will be adding some stock. Here we are using water. Flavoring goes in the form of bay leaf and peppercorn, and we are adding salt and some white pepper as well for seasoning the mixture. We are going to cook this until all the vegetables are fully done. Now coming back to the soup, the potatoes in the soup are cooked. We are adding in the dill. After adding in the dill, we will switch off the gas in a minute or so, because we don't want to cook the dill completely. The mixture for the hot pie is cooked. The mixture for the veg pot pie is cooked. We are adding in the green peas, the blanched diced tomatoes, and the tomato puree. Cook this mixture until everything comes together. We are going to add some extra flavor in the form of Worcester sauce to the dish. Worcester sauce has slightly sour acidic flavor. To top up the veg pot pie, we are going to use some short crust pastry. Short crust pastry has already been taught to you how it is done. It is a combination of refined flour and fat. We have used butter, 50 grams of butter and 100 grams of refined flour, and we have made this dough using some chilled water. And after the dough was done, the dough was allowed to rest in the refrigerator for 15 to 20 minutes, and then we have rolled it out into a thin sheet. As you are aware that when we make a short crust pastry, we do not overhandle the pastry dough. If you overhandle the dough, the butter that has been incorporated into the dough will start melting. So we will handle the dough as minimally as possible. Then roll it out to a few millimeters thick, and then we are going to cut out roundels or circles out of the dough sheet using a pastry cutter. We are going to make 2 veg pot pies, so for that I am taking out 2 circles or 2 discs of the short crust pastry. The remaining short crust pastry can be reused at a later period of time. We are using ramekin molds for the veg pot pie. The vegetable mixture will be placed in the ramekin mold. We are going to add additional flavor in the form of chopped parsley to our veg pot pie, and this mixture is going to go in the ramekin mold. We are going to spoon the mixture in the ramekin mold, and then we are going to cover this ramekin mold with the short crust pastry. Fill up the mold right up to the rim. As I told you, we are making 2 portions of this veg pot pie, so I am using 2 ramekin molds and filling 2 ramekin molds. Now I will roll out the sheets of the short crust pastry a bit more, so that they can cover the ramekin mold properly. Place the short crust pastry dough sheets on the ramekin molds. Secure the edges, seal the ramekin mold properly. Do the same thing for the other one as well. And then we are going to give gashes, that is cuts, on the surface of the short crust pastry, so that the steam that is generated inside has a way to escape. Otherwise, the steam will break through or burst the shortcut pastry. So it's always advisable to give gashes. After giving the gashes, we are going to send them to the bakery and bake them in the oven at 180 degrees Celsius for 15 minutes. Coming back to the soup, we strained the mixture out and then we pureed it. Now to the puree we are adding the leftover liquid that was used for cooking the vegetables. We are going to adjust the consistency of the soup using water. Again, you can use water, you can use milk. If you are making it in the non-veg version, you can also use some stock. Thin down the soup, get it to the right consistency, and only then can you strain the soup out. You're going to strain the soup through a soup strainer as we usually do. Make sure that all the soup that you have made goes into the soup strainer. We don't want to waste any of the soup. Using a round spoon, pass the puree through the soup strainer. The fibers will be discarded out, and then we are going to strain the soup once again. So overall, we are going to strain the soup twice to get an extra smooth texture. The second time on, we are not going to put the round spoon inside the soup strainer. We are just going to tap the soup strainer so that minimal amount of fibers go into the end product, that is the soup. Tap the soup strainer properly so that only the liquid falls into the vessel down. All the fibers that are present are discarded out. So once the soup has been strained out, then we will again check the consistency of the soup, and we are going to season and flavor the soup in the form of salt and white pepper powder. As always, we will be making a slurry out of the white pepper and salt mixture, because if you add the white pepper directly to the soup, there are chances that the white pepper would form lumps in the mixture. So to prevent that from happening, we make a slurry out of, that is, add water to it and then add it to the soup mixture. The soup will be reheated on a double boiler. Now for plating, we always serve the hot soup. So piping hot soup will be ladled directly into the soup bowl or the soup cup, and then we are going to garnish this soup. You can garnish this soup with a swirl of cream. You can also put some croutons if you want to on top. Over here I have taken a few leaves of the celery which have been deep fried, and I have used them for garnishing. So this is the veg pot pie which has come from the oven. As you notice, the crust has formed nicely, it has got a nice brown color, and the vegetables are also cooked thoroughly. And this is how you will serve the menu.